As I was editing the previous video, there were things that came to my mind that needed a little bit more clarification and or explanation. And there were also some things that tweaked my memory about what I had experienced previously and what people I worked with experienced, and some of the comments that were made before and after we had worked together. One big comment that comes to mind from some people that is pertinent to everybody is the belief that this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for the people that have these neurodegenerative problems and these ataxic movements. It just doesn't apply to us. Well, that is so wrong. It's like looking at a black sheet of paper and arguing that it's really white because you want to believe it's white because you don't want to see it as anything else but white because you're locked in this mindset where you refuse to consider anything else. And that's how this is. It's really a black and white issue of right and wrong and misperception from what reality really is. And part of that is because of what we have gone through, what we deal with, and what we have been led to believe from different sources. We come to believe, living with this, that we are different, that now our movements are different, our body is different, everything is different, and the rules that applied to everybody else, including us, when we did not have a problem, don't apply to us now. That is so far from the truth. You are the same person you were before. You are just as human now as you were then, just like everybody else. You still have the same human body. It still works the exact same way for the exact same reasons. Nothing has changed in that perspective. Just because we have this degenerative process up here in our brain doesn't change anything about this down here for the most part. Yes, there are some people that have some peripheral nerve involvement that makes it difficult for them to do certain things. There are certain people that have changes that happen to their body, physical changes that make it where they can't function as completely naturally as they did before. Yes, those are some exceptions, but as a whole, everything is still working. It's just our misperception up here about what we choose to believe or have been led to believe. All of the basic principles of nature, the way our movements work, how we respond to them, how we use the pressures on our feet, how we make those pressures, how we do all this stuff, none of that has changed. The only thing that has changed is how you are able to do those things. With the stiffness, the guarding posture, you've made it where the muscles will not work efficiently as they did before. And there's the big reason why things don't work for me anymore. I'm special. I do things differently. I have to do this because of my disorder. No, for the most part, that is bunk. It goes back to indirect effects and direct effects and how much of your problem is associated with either one. And yes, those people that do have a lot of indirect effects that they can't overcome by any means of their own, yes, then that is their problems are because of their disorder. Okay, I admit that. I agree to that. I don't have a problem with it. But for the most part, for most people, there are more indirect effects that they're dealing with that can be changed, but you didn't previously know how to go about doing that. So you were led to believe that everything was a direct effect and there was nothing you could do about it. Well, through everything you're learning here, to, everything I've learned, everything that I'm sharing with you, we're learning that yes, there are things we can change, and these indirect effects we can do something about. And oh my God, my body does respond to these things just like it naturally did before I had all these problems. So before you get into this doesn't work for me, that doesn't apply, maybe somebody else, but not me. Everybody that has done that shares one common thing, and that is they stopped working to perfect this. They stopped working to learn these feelings and to be able to relax on those pressures because it was too much work. They just got tired of doing it, and or they slept off. They thought that, well, I have it up here, so I don't need to work that much anymore. I don't need to practice it. And gradually, everything that they had gained when I had worked for them was lost. And now the big problem there is they become more depressed with their situation because they had found how they were doing a little bit better. And oh my God, they're excited about that. And then we stop working. I go way off to the next person. And then they slowly drift back to where they were before. And now they're more depressed because I was getting better and I lost it. And that's proof that this stuff just doesn't work for me. And the fact was, you didn't work or they didn't work for themselves to continue what they were beginning to learn when I was there working with them one on one, to continue that, to learn it better, to learn how they personally apply it so it becomes their own program or whatever you want to call it. They weren't doing that work for themselves. So the cop out, yes, it is a cop out, is, oh, it just doesn't work for me. Please, you're still human. Everything still works down here for those that I'm addressing this to. Everything still works. And even those that have some partial deficits down here that they need to deal with, for the most part, everything still works and everything responds and everything will just work better if you can just continue with the hard work, the dedication to push through it. So, yes, this works for you because it is our natural way of doing things. It's what we grew up doing. It's what we grew up from a baby to a toddler to the kid to the adult. It's everything everybody does. This is not Tom Klaus's way of doing things. This is the natural way. I didn't create this stuff. I was just able to describe it as I went through trying to understand how to correct the problems I had. This is nothing new. This is everything old. So if it doesn't work for you now, you're saying it didn't work for me before, but yes, it did work for you before because naturally you were just innately doing it because you had the growing ability to do it. Now, because things are altered just a little bit, now it doesn't work for me. Well, stop with the excuses and start listening to what you say. Start listening to those excuses that you give. Hey, I used to do the exact same thing, and I had to have people in my life at the right time that told me the exact same thing. And it wasn't until I stopped and started listening to what I was saying, what was coming out of my mouth, that it finally dawned on me that, oh my God, I am spewing excuses. And as I kept doing that, as I kept listening to myself, it started to make less and less sense of what I was saying. Like many of you, I wasn't giving myself a chance. I was taking the easy way out. You have to stop doing that. This applies to everyone. I don't care where you're at in the spectrum. Everybody can do something to help themselves improve in their situation. How much? What percentage? It's all relative, and it's dependent on the individual for a lot of different factors. Admittedly, for somebody that has a moderate to a significant impairment, this is tough, tough work. And the gains are gradual, but they are there. And it takes them longer to do less, but gradually they end up doing more and a little bit better. Perhaps they never come off the walker, but they're using it less and they're doing more. They have more abilities. That's a gain. There are some people that I've worked with that have been in wheelchairs and they were able to progress into the walker and start to transition into that. Everything is possible. You just have to prove it to yourself, but you have to be honest with how you're proving it to yourself by continuing on to the best of your ability to reach the goal, the ultimate goal of where you would like to be or the best that you can be. And believe me, every time you come to a point where you say, this is the best I seem I can do, no matter what I do, it just seems like I can't go to the next step up in this big staircase of moving ability that we have in front of us. I have done the exact same thing for the exact same reasons. There I was stuck saying, I guess this is as good as it gets. But then I started to question it. I learned to question, what is keeping me here? Why can't I make it to the next one? What can I do to improve where I'm at right now? And gradually I learned how to make it to that next step up. And then repeat, repeat, repeat. But there's always something, almost always something you can do to help you get to the next level. It's, what am I not incorporating? What is the next little bit I need to learn to be able to do that? Much of that is covered in this program I'm laying out in front of you. You have to take it and adapt to it yourself. You have to use it to figure it out, what is working up here for you and how you have to envision how you're using it down here and what the feelings are, what you associate them with, and what you have to do the exact same thing that everybody else does, just like you did it all your life of learning something new and doing some activity better that you really enjoyed doing. Nothing has changed. And that brings back the thought of I made in the previous video of early on, I was working on things. I was getting a little bit better. I would take a day or off or two, whatever, and I'd come back and it was like I had never learned it. And I had to relearn it again and readapt to it to be able to do it again. Well, there in what I just said is the key. And many of you have done this exact same thing. For example, you go to the therapist, you're working with the therapist for an hour or so, you're getting better. And if you repeat that day after day, you get better. But then gradually, after you leave that session, you lose it again. Then you come back and you have to relearn it again. The problem is we didn't learn it. We just mimicked it. We were just doing a show and tell. And the more we started doing it and practicing it and mimicking it, the better we got with it. But because we didn't understand what it was we were mimicking, we lost it. We didn't know how to keep what we were gaining. And that's the big key. You weren't learning it. I wasn't learning it. It's only when I started to intellectually understand it and then intellectually understand what I was doing down here, all through my body and on my feet, and how these pressures correlate to all the stuff I want to do, how I need to get in touch with that feeling of the pressure, know where it is, control that better. Only then did I start keeping all of this stuff. And only then did it start getting naturally better without as much effort because I didn't have to go back and relearn what I had not learned and what I still wasn't learning because I didn't understand what I thought I was learning. And you're in the same boat. So when you understand how to use and interpret these pressures in your feet and feel them that quick, that's when you start correcting your mistakes. That's when you start using those mistakes as your best teaching guide. And that's when you start to make fewer mistakes. That's when you start correcting those mistakes when they're smaller. And everything starts to get better. You don't have to think as much about it. You don't have to process as much. You're just using it better. You're focusing on it. You make a mistake. Oh, I know why I did that. Oh, you fall once in a while. Oh God, why did that pressure get back there? Oh my gosh, I didn't do this. I did that. Everything becomes easier. So that it doesn't work for me. I stopped doing it, and it was like I never learned it. I had to do it all over again. All of that is saying the same exact thing. So believe me, trust me. And if you take this program I'm giving you, all this natural information, if you actually learn it this time, get it up here, use it down here. So ideally, this works best for those people just starting to have these problems that are new to this ataxic and neurodegenerative world. These are the people that need this to help them stop some of this stuff from happening. These are the people that need to learn this so they can learn how to stay better for longer. So they don't develop a lot of these indirect effects. Their quality of life is better. They stay employed longer. They keep earning that paycheck. Their family life, their social life, their everything is better just because they learn how not to be as clumsy as a lot of us got. When I sat for the first time in a National Ataxia Foundation group meeting, the conference, it was in 1998, and I saw a lot of this stuff for the first time, and I looked around and I listened, and nothing was being said about this is what you can do to help yourself today. Instead, it was there's nothing you can do. Sorry about that. We're working on a treatment and a cure, but until then, you just have to do the best you can get. You just have to do the best you can because you're just going to get worse. Well, learn this stuff. With the introduction of everything that I have written in the book and what is here on this website and all these videos, that statement doesn't have to be told to these newly diagnosed people. It is, we know what you can do for yourself to help you stay better longer. There is something you can do to help yourself. No, there's no cure right now, but use this to do the best you can do to stay better longer, have a better quality of life while we work on all this research to find that cure and to find something to ultimately wipe this thing from humanity. That's great. But we have to learn how to do something for ourselves. This is how you can do something for yourself. That's the best thing you can do for yourself, movement wise. You get your movements better, and your whole life is going to start getting better. Now, off my soapbox and on to something else. In the previous video, I was talking about we start doing this because of our cerebellar problem. Why do we do this? I said in that previous video that we start to do this to gain some stability in our feet. We're using that pressure on the inside of our feet to push our body to the center. And all that is correct. But what I failed to say as I was going through the video was why we're doing that and what is it that makes it so much easier. Yes, we're using the inside pressure on the feet, but now where does that pressure come from? Because I also said we're getting clumsy up here and we stop pushing that pressure down into our feet because these leg muscles aren't doing what they're meant to be doing. So we do this to get on the inside pressure on our feet. But what is creating that pressure on the inside of our feet? One, it's having them spread further apart, like I said, because center is here. Now these are offset. So our feet are functionally tilted to an angle more. So they're pushing more. But again, the question is what's causing or what is creating that pressure? It's our body weight. We're all stiff. We're still not pushing into those feet. Our body weight is the only thing that's creating that pressure. That's how we can walk around like this penguin, moving from side to side. We don't have to generate any increased pressure there because our body weight, now that our feet are spread further apart, is creating that pressure on that smaller area of our feet on the insides. And that's enough to do just this. Our body weight is pushing us to the center. Our body weight is pushing out, and that force going out, there's also a force coming in. That's pushing our body to the center. That's why we're stable. So when somebody is in this wider stance and they're being told to bring their feet together for walking practice, standing practice, sitting practice, whatever practice you want, that is the worst thing they can be told because they're coming off of the inside pressures of the feet where it's just body weight, and now they're coming into this narrower gait or stance rather, and they're still not pushing down into their feet with these muscles. So they're more unstable because now there's less pressure on the inside of their feet holding their body here. They can't focus on what they're being advised to do for walking, standing, sitting, whatever, because they're too unstable and their mind is up here. The fear load is increasing, instability is increasing, all they can think about is, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling. They're not hearing what they're being told. They can't do what they're told because of the instability here. So anyone who's telling anyone with this problem to stand with their feet close together, to walk with their feet close together, whatever, stop doing that because you're not doing them any favors. So, Mr. Smarty Pants, how are these people that are standing with their feet wider apart, using their body weight, how are they going to transition getting their feet closer together to do all these activities they want to do? Well, the answer is they're going to do that on their own when they have the ability to do just that. As they come through this natural progression of ability through all of these stances, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, as they gain better ability, better stability, better coordination, better everything, when their posture allows it, they will be able to stand with their feet closer together. Their feet will come together naturally as they start learning how to control that pressure on their feet. And when they are able to do that, then their feet will be there because the pressure on the inside of their feet will not be there that pushes them apart. Let's use an example to illustrate this point. Let's say I want to take a stride forward. So I set everything up, and here I am right there. Okay, now let me take another stride. Now look where my foot is. What was the difference that caused that? Well, okay, let's say I have ataxia. I have a neurodegenerative disorder. Well, I actually do. Okay, I'm going to take a stride like you. It's way out here. Okay, let me go back to I've learned a little bit more and I've learned how to control that pressure. And now I'm going to take a stride. And this foot goes right there. What caused the difference? When I had that ataxic movement, my foot went over there. When I had a little bit better learning how to control that pressure of my feet, that foot went right there. I changed the width or the narrowness of my gait, my stride pattern, by just adjusting the pressure of my foot. People with these ataxic movements, they're using the inside pressure of their feet, and that is pushing them to the side as they're coming forward. There's your wide base stride. But when they learn to shift their weight over toward the center of the foot, now they're pushing themselves forward instead of out to the side. So there again, when they learn how to control these pressures on the feet where they're supposed to be, they will get a narrower and narrower stride that looks more natural. These people will correct their own mistakes when they recognize them and when they learn how to control pressures in their feet. The wide stance is not purely because the cerebellum is messed up somehow. It's because the person isn't controlling the pressure on the feet. It's because of that instability, and now they're just using body weight to gain that stability back with this widened stance. That's pretty much all it is. I hope that helps clarify some things. And if you have questions, just make a comment and we'll try to say it or show it in a different way, in a better way, to help the learning process for everybody. A better day is coming. You just need to find how to make yours happen.